Hello and welcome to the Dynasty Bell Cows podcast. It is week 8 of NFL action, and Evan and I are back representing the podcast, ready for another jam-packed week of football. So we're super stoked for this episode. We have a couple different segments for you guys, and we're also going to share some updates on how our own teams are doing this season. I know that's one of those things that not a lot of podcasts do. So you're gonna get to hear some insider talk.
Wow.
Yep.
We're really revealing the curtain for our Bell Cows fans this week. So you're gonna find out if we're experts or reliable source, or if we're are we champs or chumps. That's what we're gonna be finding out
There we go.
this week. There we go.
Yep. And I think we owe it to the listeners because we didn't do one Tuesday this week and we didn't do one Thursday of last week. So we're making up for time lost. So really excited to get into it. But first, I want to share an update. Evan had the best week so far as DraftKings. I think he had like 158 points. The series is now tied up 2-2. Evan and I both have won 2 weeks. I won the first 2 weeks. He has the next 2 weeks. And now it's the tiebreaker. Let's see who can pull ahead.
Yeah, everyone was counting me out. Rocky Balboa got punched in the face by Apollo Creed. I was down for the count, but I said I was going to go the distance. I got back up, and here we are, 2-2. It's all tied up thanks to my friend Koopa Cup of Coffee, the legend. So
Yeah.
he really jolted my offense. I bet on him, of course, and I've been targeting him like crazy in my league. So he's just been exploding as usual every week. So, and then of course Derrick Henry, he's never gonna not be a running back one, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So he's just a monster. That was quite the Chiefs were not doing their chop in the in the stadium last week.
No, they weren't.
They were getting chopped by the Titans.
Yeah, they were down like an insane score at halftime. And that was just a really brutal game. Then Mahomes got injured, and it was like, oh my gosh. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a later segment. But I just want to highlight some of the players that you picked, and then we're going to kind of get into a bunch of topics about this week. You had Tua Tagovailoa with 28.5 points. Now, normally we'd say that's a great week, but it's an even better week this week because Tua Tagovailoa was the top quarterback this entire week. The top 2 performers were Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase. and then Matthew Stafford was the second highest quarterback. So a little bit of an untraditional week. And then you also had Cooper Kupp. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting week for sure. Jalen Hurts, my quarterback, balled out as well. I had Chris Godwin and Mike Gesicki, 2 great picks, but unfortunately that wasn't enough to pull out the victory. But let's head into our first segment for today. And we're going to go with Boom Point because the last couple episodes we've been ending on Boom Point. So let's start it off with Boom Point this time. So just a reminder for those of you guys who haven't seen this segment before, I'm going to pick a random NFL team, and then we're going to talk about a player and make a quick point and then move it on. So here we go. All right. Time to spin the wheel. Yep. All right. Spinning the wheel. And the team is, Evan, who do you think it is?
Vikings.
It was between the Vikings, and then it kept going, and it landed on the Packers. So Packers.
NFC North.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I'll let you choose a player here.
Well, I'm sorry to our Packers fans, but I hate you. For my whole life. I never saw, so Brett Favre never lost a game against the Lions at Lambeau Field.
Wow.
From 1992 to 2008. I mean, imagine that. I didn't see the Lions win a game at Lambeau until like 2014. So that's insane in itself. 26 years. But anyways, okay, we got a big game tonight. I may not like the Packers, but I do like their fantasy players. I love me some Devontae Adams. Unfortunately, he's been ruled out with COVID, which has a lot of people shaking in their boots,
Yeah.
I'm sure, this week. He's a fantasy monster. He's Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers owners and Adams owners are a little bit flustered this week, but that means that there's going to be some good opportunities for Randall Cobb. Alan Lazard is also out, so Randall Cobb is somebody that I'm flexing this week. I already picked him up in best ball. He's Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy.
How about Amari Rodgers? Are we actually going to get to see Amari Rodgers tonight? Or are we going to get to see a bounce back of Robert Tonyan getting the job done? Or just a big game for Aaron Jones in general?
Yeah, so I like Amari Rodgers a lot. I liked him out of Clemson. He's seems to be getting more and more involved in the offense, but he hasn't really broken out. And I think that Rodgers is going to lean more on Randall Cobb, and then Marquez Valdez Scantling is another guy that I would start ahead of Amari Rodgers. I just think that Rodgers has more rapport with those two, and Valdez Scantling has showed us in the past that he can step up when Adams is injured. So those are my two receiver flexes if you're desperate this week, and then for this game, and then Tunyon, I would take a risk on him this week. Yeah. Because I know it's a tough defense, but I mean there's going to be a lot of points in this game. I think with Murray and Rodgers going head to head, and I think that Tunyon's going to get some red zone targets in this game. So I wouldn't be surprised if he can sneak in the end zone, possibly.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. I think that Tonyan could have a big step up this week. I'm with you. I think Marquez Valdez Scantling is probably the receiver there to own for this week. I don't know about Randall Cobb. How old is he now? He feels like the Larry Fitzgerald in the league right now. Seems like the last time I was hearing about Randall Cobb actually doing something was like 5 years ago, because I think he's been stuck on like a team like the Texans recently.
Yeah,
So
he's jumped around a bit. He did have in week 4 against Pittsburgh, he had 23.9 points.
There we go.
6 targets, 5 receptions. It was a old school game, 69 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
So I mean he's a reliable receiver. He's a good route runner. He doesn't have the burst that he used to, but he can get open. He's smart. So I do like him as somebody that you may have Marquise Brown, you may have Rashad Bateman, you may have Henry Ruggs. So you might be needing to plug somebody in, and I would probably go with Randall Cobb personally if I was going to choose a Packer receiver.
That's fair. I'm going with Scantling, but I am actually for our FanDuel DraftKings lineup. Mark me down for Aaron Jones. I haven't seen the price tag yet. We're going to fill that out. But I'm going to go with Aaron Jones tonight. No matter the price, that guy is going to explode for you. Let's move on to the next team. The next team is, drum roll please, the Dallas Cowboys.
Jeez, man, you're picking my 2 least favorite teams. 2014 pass interference on Brandon Pettigrew. Yeah, remember that, Cowboys fans? I still haven't forgiven you.
That playoff game with Matthew Stafford and Tony Romo. That was a crazy game. And then, of course, the next week, I think Tony Romo had that infamous play to Dez Bryant. Where is it a catch? No, it's not a catch. Well,
it should have been. I'll give you guys that one. It was a catch. The refs screwed you guys. That week you didn't deserve that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, kind of karma. They barely squeak out the victory, and now the next week they barely come away with the loss. But Dallas Cowboys, here we are America's team, and let's make it real quick. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Who's going to be the go-to receiver on this team moving forward? I think it's CeeDee Lamb. I think he's the future of this team. I love Amari Cooper. I think he's a great route runner. But this season, he hasn't necessarily looked as involved in week 1. And I actually traded him in my redraft league because I'm not super confident of Amari Cooper. Whereas CeeDee Lamb, we're seeing it, the young receiver takeover, future league, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. Those guys are going to be the elite receivers in years to come.
So, Justin, at this point, would you rank CeeDee Lamb higher than a AJ Brown?
Yes.
Okay. What about DK Metcalf?
DK Metcalf? I don't know. Hey, I mean, if we're looking at Geno Smith, gotta give it to CeeDee Lamb. Geno Smith looked okay. But I will note something interesting about the Seahawks offense. Pete Carroll, they were like running the ball a lot. They were not giving the passing game a chance at all. And I'm concerned Russell Wilson comes back into play. You know, he likes Tyler Lockett. But depending on the game script, DK Metcalf might not be involved. So I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to outperform DK Metcalf the rest of the season. So, yeah, I'm sticking with CeeDee Lamb.
There's a boom point right there. So
there we go. Boom
if you
CeeDee Lamb over DK Metcalf.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go up against you on that one. I'm gonna say that DK Metcalf has more points, fantasy points this season than Lamb, and that's just because even with Russell Wilson out, I mean, we saw DK Metcalf take one reception for 76 yards or something wild on that play.
That was amazing.
Torched Marshawn Lattimore. So even when he's not getting a bunch of targets, he can do so much with so little. He's just a monster. And you know me, I like my diva receivers. So I'm gonna take DK there, but I like CD too. He's a stud, and Cooper just hasn't been very effective. I mean, he's ranked 26 right now, wide receiver, and that's just not good enough for where you drafted him. So I mean, it might not be a bad time to buy him for how cheap he might be going, but at the same time, he's getting older, and I mean, how durable is he going to be moving forward?
Agreed.
That's a question I have.
So the difference right now between DK Metcalf and CeeDee Lamb in PPR is 122.7 to like 108.4. So there's a 14-point gap. And I'm saying that CeeDee Lamb's going to catch him. CeeDee Lamb had almost 40 points the last week that he's played. And so we'll see if he can catch him. But I will say the matchups for right now for the Dallas defenses, the secondaries that they're going against, they have been elite and they have been very difficult in fantasy football. So give him one good week against one poor secondary. I think that's where we're going to see him explode. Let's move on to the next guy. It's boom point. We're keeping it moving here. The next team is.
Can I make one quick comment?
Yeah, go for it.
So Dak Prescott, he was injured last week. They've gone into the bye, but they're not 100% sure that he's going to be ready for the next game against the Vikings with his calf injury. So if you're a Dak Prescott owner, what I would be doing right now is picking up his backup Cooper Rush off of waivers. So just go ahead and stash him, drop somebody that really hasn't done anything for you and is just a roster spot stuffer right now. Just get rid of him, pick up Cooper Rush, and hang on to that just in case Dak isn't ready to go. So you're not stuck with one QB in a super flex, or maybe your backup is on a bye.
And I'm going to go ahead and completely disagree and say do not pick up Cooper Rush, because unfortunately we see it time and time again now. The offense not built for the backup quarterback. They struggle a little bit. Geno Smith didn't exactly play great for the Seahawks. We haven't really seen the emergence of backup quarterbacks this season. So that offense isn't built towards Cooper Rush. He's a player that we really haven't seen much. He's still young. I think he was a 7th round pick, and there's so many quarterbacks I'd rather have over Cooper Rush, even in a dynasty league or maybe even a super flex league. But the next team is
nah, it's okay.
I mean, it's gonna happen. We're gonna disagree. What if I told you the next team was the Los Angeles Rams?
That's okay. I have lots of shares in their players.
Yeah. I was just kidding. It's not the Rams. It is the Jaguars. I know we've been going against some teams that you hate, but we'll go to Jaguars and one to the Rams. The Rams did get the victory over your Lions. But first, the Jaguars. Let's talk about Laviska Shenault, a guy that I own in a couple of leagues, and a guy that I'm really growing fond of. Trevor Lawrence, he's getting better week in and week out. And Laviska Shenault, he's been a go-to receiver. outside of Marvin Jones, who's been the number one receiver, but we're seeing Laviska Shenault catch up, and he's that athletic freak of an athlete that has been having some big weeks. So I expect soon a really big week for Laviska Shenault, and I expect his stock to really go up. So right now, if I own Laviska Shenault, I'm gonna start him this week.
Oh yeah, he's a must start for sure. He's a guy I really liked last season. He was very effective in the short screen game, the shorter routes. He almost reminds me a little bit of like a Juju Smith-Schuster with how they used him last season. They've been setting him on a little bit more of a longer routes since DJ Chark went out. But Chenault's somebody that I do have big plans for. I told our listeners that I traded AJ Brown for an early first round pick in 2022 and Laviska Shenault.
Yeah.
So, and which is risky. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I'm willing to take that risk. I like him a lot, especially the Lawrence connection and how young he is. He's a second year receiver. And so the thing with him is I want to see him break 20-point threshold. He's had some decent weeks, but I mean, last week he had 2 weeks ago against Miami, he only had 11. Week before he had 6. He did have 10 targets last week, which is what I really like.
Encouraging.
So the targets are more of what I'm looking at, not necessarily the receptions. I see all those targets and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to end up, making up some of these, some of these big games when he starts catching those passes that he's being targeted on.
All right, we're moving on now to the Rams because let's just go there because I think it's really interesting now with Robert Woods taking the back seat to Cooper Kupp. Can he stay reliable? Do you have a take on Robert Woods right now?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose between having Allen Robinson or Robert Woods, I would choose Robert Woods. Woods is in very high-powered offense, obviously with Matthew Stafford, and defenses are eventually they're going to have to start double teaming Cooper Kupp, shifting the safety over him. And that's going to open up some deep routes for Robert Woods. Woods is currently ranked the 19th receiver in PPR. So, I mean, he's no slouch. He had a really well, I mean, honestly, why are we hating on Woods so much? He's had 1 week below 10 points. He had 12 week 1, 12 week 2, 6 week 3, and then he's come back with 14, 27, 11, 15. So, I mean, he's a guy, he's a really solid flex play. He's always been solid. He's only had one game over 10 targets, but he's averaging right around 5 or 6 targets a game. So, I mean, I really like Robert Woods. He'd be a great guy to target if you're a contender and you need a reliable flex, that somebody that you can put in there week to week, and you need somebody that's just not gonna, bottom out on you. I mean, maybe trade. I mean, I would give up probably a second or an early third, a late second or an early third for Robert Woods.
That's not going to get the job done.
No,
Robert Woods.
I don't think so. A second round.
Late second round, I don't know if that's going to get the job done. I don't think you're going to trade him unless you get like a really generous offer first round pick, because I'm saying if I'm throwing a dart in the second round and I'm getting a hit or miss wide receiver like a De'Ami Brown or
Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney. That's a hit.
In the second,
or Ross St. Brown. So it's hit or miss with this range, and we know that we're at least going to have a couple more productive years out of Robert Woods. I have Matthew Stafford now, so he's even going to trend upward. And I have to agree with you for the most part. He's sitting at 99 points right now in PPR, the 19th best receiver, as you just said. That's only 9 points less than a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who everyone's extremely high on. So right now, if I have Robert Woods, I'm not selling him, and I'm also trying to trade for him because he's at that age where you're not going to get what you want from him, so trade value, but he's going to be fairly affordable if you can get him. I think I don't know necessarily if a first will get the job done.
What about a late second and OBJ?
OBJ. Then we're talking a little bit.
Yeah,
it's tough.
He's a guy
They're
that
both
has
about
the
same
name.
age, right?
Well, OBJ is nowhere near the production that Woods is right now.
Yeah.
OBJ's got the name, he's got the brand, but he hasn't produced since Landry's been out. He's still getting some targets though, and he has enough of a role in that offense to have some trade value. So maybe he's a guy that you throw in there, for Woods and maybe an early third or late second. I would take a risk on that.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that I would still rather have the Robert Woods side because Odell Beckham, both of his shoulders are kind of bothering him. He's gonna forego the surgery, but needless to say, he's had a bunch of injuries, ACL, shoulders, all these injuries. He can't really stay on the field, and even when he does stay on the field, it's clear that Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham do not have that chemistry. Like Jarvis Landry and Baker Mayfield, they have that chemistry. But Odell Beckham, ever since he's gone to the Browns, even when healthy and even when looked at as the number one guy, he gets like 14 targets. He's only going to catch about 7 of them because half those plays, Baker Mayfield and him are not on the same page. All right, let's do one last boom point here. The team that we're going to be talking about. Okay, the Miami Dolphins.
Dude, that was literally the team that I had in my mind. I don't know why.
I should have asked you again. I should ask you, what team do you think it is? One of these times it's going to be really impressive.
Yeah, I was actually excited. I was hoping you were going to talk about them because, what are they going to do with Tua Tagovailoa?
Hey, the trade deadline passed, right? And Tua Tagovailoa, they still don't have Deshaun Watson.
Isn't it Tuesday?
Oh, Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, from what I've been hearing, they look like, Tua Tagovailoa has been told, I'm still the guy. I'm still going to be able to run this offense. So I don't know if the Dolphins going to make a push for Deshaun Watson. I know that owner wants to make a push for him, but like GM and Brian Flores, I think they want to stay put with Tua Tagovailoa because bringing in another guy this late in the season is interesting to say the least. You got to catch him up to speed. Now, I love Deshaun Watson. I think that Deshaun Watson is worth everything that you're trading for, but still, I don't think it's realistically going to happen.
Yeah, with Tua, he's still shown that he can be a productive, quarterback in fantasy, like a lower. He could probably be a high quarterback too, like between like a 13 to 16 range. He's somebody you can throw in there. This week he was the first quarterback. He had 40. Yeah. He's had over 40 attempts the last 2 weeks. He has 6 touchdowns the last 2 weeks and 3 picks. So really it's just those stupid red zone interceptions that he keeps throwing that are, deteriorating his value as far as, being the starting quarterback for Miami. But as long as he's healthy, he throws the ball enough that he can give you enough production to be a starter on your fantasy roster. And he's probably pretty cheap, honestly, because people at this point don't know where he's going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and add him to my buy list.
Yeah.
Just because, when he is playing, he's giving me good enough numbers that I can throw him in, and I know he's gonna produce as a high quarterback too, which is valuable whether you're in super flex or standard format. And he just throws the ball a lot, and he has Jalen Waddle. Will Fuller will come back, and then they didn't have Devontae Parker.
Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Gesicki's been balling out too. So I like Tua, and I think, whether he ends up in Washington or, staying in Miami or whatever, he has a pretty bright future as long as, the team, he has a bright future just for the next few years at least.
I'd say that's fairly bold, but I just got to say this. Tua legit to quit. He's been in 3 full games right now. He got to play through 3 full games because the second week against the Buffalo Bills, he got injured pretty early on. So out of 3 games that he's played for, he's gotten 17, 22, and 28.5 fantasy points. So pretty solid. That puts him up in that quarterback 1 range. And now the 3 games that he's played, he won the first game against the Patriots, which I think people take for granted, 17-16. That's not a tough team to go in and play against. We know Bill Belichick, that defense is stiff. We see that Zach Wilson still can't get it done against that defense, even though they did get injured. And then they brought in Mike White that just this past week came in there and struggled against that defense. So Bill Belichick is really tough against young quarterbacks. But then we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, They lost to them by 3 points, but he still had a decent showing. And then finally against the Falcons, they lost 28-30. So they've scored at least 17 points each of these weeks, and they've never lost by more than 3 points. So each of these margins have been razor thin. So I don't think it's time to give up on Tua Tagovailoa quite yet. But let's head into our next segment now. Underreaction versus overreaction. Simple, basically what the name is. First time we're doing it on this podcast. Let's go straight into it. Jamar Chase, is he a top 5 receiver right now? Overreaction or underreaction? Or just right?
I'm gonna go underreaction. I'm gonna say that he's a top 3 dynasty receiver.
Okay.
Yeah, because I believe so. I was a hater of Jamar. He sat out a season. How committed to football is he? He doesn't know.
Oh, you're one of those people.
He doesn't know how to catch an NFL football without the stripes on it. He can't catch in the preseason. He's not getting separation in camp. And I was also the guy who was buying it on the Bryan Edwards hype. So take that as you will. But I mean, Jamar Chase has been he's just been absolutely insane. I don't think anybody was expecting him to be. He broke my boy Anquan Bolden's 7-game record for a rookie. And Bolden, I mean, he was ridiculous that season. Another guy who torched the Lions. Anquan Bolden had 233 yards in his first game against the Lions. It was ridiculous, but yeah. So Chase is currently the third ranked wide receiver behind Cooper Kupp, and I believe Tyreek Hill still has the second spot. You'll have to fact check me there, but he's been absolutely insane. Accurate. Yeah, Chase. He's only 21 years old. He's played in every single game. I mean, the past 4 weeks, he's had 33, 13, 27, 13. Before that,
he's never had less than 13.4 points all season.
Yeah, and he's doing it. I mean, he had 10 targets this week, 6 the week before, 10. But I mean, the biggest thing has been the touchdowns. I mean, he's had 2 games this season out of 7
where he hasn't
scored a touchdown. So I mean, he is just ridiculous. I think he's easily the number 1 receiver on the team. He's outshined T. Higgins. Higgins has had some lingering issues. Tyler Boyd's not really taking away from his target share. He's Joe Burrow's guy. And I see him as such a valuable dynasty piece because of his age. First and foremost, he's 21 years old. Like I said, he's outperforming Anquan Bolden, a guy who was a dominant receiver for years and years. Randy Moss, another guy he's been competing with as far as rookie numbers. So, I mean, this is a guy that I think is going to be a very valuable dynasty piece for years to come. I actually just tried to trade for him. I offered Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore. I might have thrown Mooney in too and like a pick or something. And the guy he wasn't having it. He's like, no.
I'm not quite there.
Yeah.
Not quite there. Well, before the season started, Jamar Chase was my 13th highest ranked dynasty receiver. And now he's proven me right. Although I'm with you here. I didn't expect him to do this good because he's been on fire. I would agree with that, saying that it might actually be an underreaction. It's hard to say it like outside of fantasy that he's a top 3 receiver, but based on that Bengals offense, that fantasy alone, dynasty, he has to be. But strictly, if we're talking top 5 receivers in the NFL, I don't know. But he is right now. Justin Jefferson had an amazing rookie season. We said in order for him to be worth the number 2 or number 3 pick in a dynasty rookie draft, he basically has to have the season that Justin Jefferson has, and he's actually outdoing him right now. So 11th best player overall in fantasy. That's quarterbacks included. Well, let's do another overreaction, underreaction. Let's do AJ Brown. AJ Brown is officially back into the elite wide receiver 1 category.
I'm gonna say that's
he's had 27 points this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's an overreaction, and that's just because we've seen this before, where he disappears for weeks and then he comes back and he's dominant. he's currently ranked the 39th receiver in fantasy. He's had 2 huge weeks back to back, 27 against Kansas City, 16 against Buffalo. I mean, the targets are what is nice to see. He had 9 targets both weeks. He got back in the end zone this week finally. So, I mean, if you're gonna say wide receiver 1 and like as a dynasty asset, oh yeah, easily he's a wide receiver 1. But as far
Redraft.
as yeah, I guess yeah. So he probably I think he's got to be a wide receiver 1 just based on his just his talent and how dominant he is when he is on his game. So I mean, okay, I guess I got to change my answer. Yeah,
Well,
he's a wide receiver 1. I think he's a lower tier wide receiver 1 at this point, but he is a wide receiver 1 in my opinion.
so you're saying that's a justified reaction. You're not saying this is an underreaction.
Yeah, I mean, I would put him in a lower tier wide receiver 1 with guys like Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore.
Ooh, I don't know if I can compare him to Terry McLaurin. That guy's been hated on. He's unbelievable. Every single week, I think he had made snag this past week where there was no way I thought he was going to get it. If you look at NFL stats, he had like a 20% chance of catching it, and he still caught it. Like Terry McLaurin is legit. And for AJ Brown, a guy who's 102nd ranked right now as far as all fantasy, he's like, okay, I know he has these big 2 weeks, but it's going to be a matter of time before Derrick Henry has a really big week again. It's happening basically every single week, and that offense is going to focus around him. So because of the season that Derrick Henry is having, and because Julio Jones is still there, I think that I don't know if I can justify saying he's in wide receiver 1 quite yet. He's a must-start and he's a wide receiver 2, but I would not put him in that wide receiver range there.
That
So I'm gonna
sounds
say
like a
slight
spicy.
overreaction.
That sounds like a spicy take to me to say that Terry McLaurin's better than AJ Brown.
Is it?
Yeah, because I mean
He's the
AJ Brown.
37th ranked player right now compared to 102nd ranked player.
Yeah, I know, but
119 points this season so far.
yeah, but like look at so Terry McLaurin, he had 25 this week, but week 6 he had 6 points, week 5 he had 8. And then if you look at AJ Brown, he had 27 this week, he had 16 the week before.
Yep.
I mean, so if you're looking at them moving forward, and then he had 6 in week 5 against Jacksonville.
But
So
McLaurin has had 3 big weeks, 25, 27.7, and 30.3. So he's had that real high upside. It's just
yeah, I just think
I
AJ
argue
Brown
that
does as well.
What were you saying?
I would just say that AJ Brown has that same upside that
He
McLaurin
does.
has to dominate a game. I mean, we saw it. I mean, he had the flu and he had food poisoning and he went out and still dominated the Chiefs. So I mean, and he's just such he's like a DK Metcalf in my opinion, just the build.
Again, I don't like when someone says they have food poisoning. Oh, they played through an injury the whole season. Good for them. It's like he's on the field. You know, you gotta expect what you gotta expect for the most part. It's like you can't necessarily buy into all these things that are taken away from them. But that's interesting. I still gotta go with my guy Terry McLaurin. He's easily the number 1 weapon in that Washington football team offense. You know, they don't have Derrick Henry, they don't have Julio Jones. It's the Terry McLaurin show. As long as high ending get it to him, then I think that
That's the problem.
I mean, that is the problem. That is the
Heineke.
problem.
I mean, I would much rather have AJ Brown with Derrick Henry running the ball effectively, not too effectively. That's the problem. Is what you were saying is if Henry takes over a game, then Brown doesn't get the ball. But I mean, Gibson still has a weird fracture injury going on. Heineke, he's playing similar to Sam Darnold now, which has been really frustrating for fantasy owners. I just don't know what they're going to do in Washington. If McLaurin's a guy that if they did trade for Tua Tagovailoa, his stock would go a little further. I mean, he's great on his own, but with a more reliable passer, I mean, that would shoot his stock up even more.
I was hoping that Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to be coming back. He's still a few weeks away. So,
yeah,
but That's interesting. That's another disagreement. Having some good
We've had
debates
a few.
about
We should keep
receivers.
track. We should keep track of these. I'm gonna have to listen to this
Oh
pod
boy.
afterwards and write down our takes to see who come. We could have a end of the season pod where we talk about our makes and misses and compare those what our takes were.
Yeah, I think it was inside the NBA, Charles cross sport reference, like Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and Ernie Johnson. And every once in a while in this season, they make these outrageously bold points. And they put a sticky note saying, like, on this date, so and so, Chuck said this.
Oh, nice.
And what ended up happening is at the end of the season, they went back and they looked at those sticky notes. And I think there was maybe 1 or 2 sticky notes out of like 40 or 50 sticky notes that were proven correct. So
Oh my
it's a
God,
dangerous
really?
game to play, but I think it's safe to say we're a little bit more accurate than that. But let's go with another overreaction, underreaction. Matthew Stafford is playing at an MVP caliber level, and at the end of the season will be top 3 in MVP votes. Matthew Stafford.
I'm gonna say that's right on.
Right on.
Yeah,
okay.
I made a preseason future bet on Matthew Stafford. I know people think I hate him, blah blah blah. Well, I also like making money and I like winning fantasy games. So I traded for Stafford in a few leagues, drafted him. I also took him to win the MVP award this season. So
wow, okay.
He's currently the 6th rated fantasy quarterback. He's been just Mr. Reliable all season. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 20-point weeks.
Yeah, he's been
fantasy.
Really reliable.
Yeah, so I mean, he throws the ball so well. I mean, he's got Cooper Kupp, Woods, Van Jefferson. Him and McVay are firing on all cylinders. And to win the MVP, you really have to win games. So I mean, to me, in my opinion, it's between Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Matthew Stafford. I feel like those 3 are going head to head for the MVP at this point. Stafford and the Rams, they've lost 1 game thus far. The Cardinals are undefeated, and then the Bills, are they 4-2 or 5-1?
Something like that.
Yeah. So all 3 of them have been balling out this season, but Stafford, he's kind of a Hollywood story. He's tortured. He has it so bad in Detroit, those poor Lions and the Fords ruining his career. And then he goes to the bright lights, big city with, McVay and the Rams. And he starts, finally getting the respect he deserves and wins and all this stuff. So I could just see it being a Hollywood ending where Stafford ends up winning the MVP and, everybody is yay, Stafford. Yeah.
Maybe a Super Bowl on the way too. We'll see. But
win a playoff game first, Matt, huh?
Yeah, you got
you got to win a division first and a playoff game. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree and say that that's an overreaction right now. But there are a lot of really good quarterbacks right now.
Mm-hmm.
You left out of those names. You left out Dak Prescott having an unbelievable season. He has to be in the discussion. Hands down has to be in the discussion with the team that he has and the way he's turning this Cowboys team around, where we literally saw what it was like without Dak Prescott last season. We saw what it was without Matthew Stafford, who honestly, Andy Dalton was kind of low-key better than Jared Goff last season for the Rams, and they still squeaked into the playoffs. Without Dak Prescott, they were like a 5-win team. Yeah. And then we have Lamar Jackson. He had an off week.
Oh, I forgot about Lamar. I'm sorry.
But Lamar Jackson's still a crazy stats guy. And of course, it can't be an MVP debate without the GOAT, Tom Brady. But I want to throw one more name into this, another overreaction, underreaction. Joe Burrow is in the MVP, will be in the MVP discussion by the end of the year. Overreaction, underreaction.
I like Smoking Joe. I like his moxie, but I like the Bengals too. I mean, who dey? But I can't. I'm sorry. I mean, Joe, you've been playing great for 8 weeks. The team's currently the number 1 seed in the AFC. I'm gonna say enjoy it while it lasts. I mean, the Bengals are they were better than my Lions, but they have had heart-wrenching experiences. They've had good teams before, and I don't see them being able to dominate the division like they have. I mean, they still have to play the Ravens again. They have to play the Browns. Pittsburgh's never an easy win. I don't see them. I don't see Burrow. I don't see them winning the division. I think the Ravens are going to win the division.
41-17. Ringing any bells? 41-17. The score where the Bengals absolutely gave the Ravens a beatdown. This is also the Ravens team that almost lost to the Lions. Actually, should have lost and has never really won a game by like more than 5 points the entire season. And then you have the Bengals out here getting better week after week. I'm actually going to say this. I don't think that by the end of the season, I don't think Matthew Stafford's going to be a top 3 MVP candidate because we have so many good options. I think the Bengals will win that division. This Bengal team is real. We have to take it for what it is. I know the running game isn't exactly booming right now, but man, Joe Burrow, the last 4 weeks, gotten at least 20 fantasy points. He's getting better and better as the season goes along. He's almost looking like LSU Joe
so
now.
you're gonna go on a limb and say that Burrow's gonna be. You're gonna say he's gonna be a top 3 MVP voter.
Man, I feel like I'm trapping myself in the corner if I say that. I'm not necessarily saying that he overtake Matthew Stafford, but I'm saying, and I love Matthew Stafford. I'm saying probability-wise, when we have 6 or 7 guys who realistically be the number one player in league MVP, that chances are he probably might finish outside that top 3. I think he's going to be close though. But is Joe Burrow going to be top 3? You know what? I'll say this. This will be a bold take. Joe Burrow will be top 5 and this season. There we go. It's out there. And then we got Justin Herbert as well. So craziness at the quarterback position. There's really this elite trio right now that's really taking over the league.
So we'll throw this out there. I picked Joe Burrow to be the comeback player of the year. Yeah, and so I did take him to be.
Hold on, comeback. Your mic was sounding a little bit off there. Maybe adjust that.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yep.
All right. So I did take Joe Burrow to be the comeback player of the year. I took Stafford to be the MVP.
That's a great pick.
And Joe Burrow to be comeback player of the year. So, all right, don't hate me too much, Cincy.
All right. Let's go with one more overreaction, underreaction, and then we'll talk about our teams. Since I know the listeners are dying to hear about that. Let's go with the tight end. Let's go with Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki right now in a dynasty league, he's worth a first. Overreaction, underreaction.
I'm gonna say it's right on. I think he's worth a first. I wouldn't trade him for a late, an early first maybe, but tight end is such a difficult position to have a monopoly on. You know, I mean, it's hard to have a Waller or a Kelsey. But this year has been interesting because we have players now that are leaders at the tight end position that don't typically do that. So, I mean, Gesicki is currently the 3rd ranked tight end in fantasy football. Kelsey's number 1. Yeah, Kelsey and Andrews are 1 and 2 respectively, but Gesicki's 3, Hawkinson 4, which we expected. But Dalton Schultz is also, he's number 5, Fant 6. So, I mean,
Knox would be there if he was healthy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Dawson Knox. So, I mean, some of these guys we weren't really expecting. They're flying under the radar. So, I mean, Gesicki, he had a slow start, but since week 3, he's been absolutely dominant. And he's a young guy. He's only, well, for a tight end, he's young. He's 26. He has enough experience that he knows where he's supposed to be. Yeah. So, I mean, he's been fantastic. I'm happy that I have him, and he's a guy that you start every week and you feel good about it, especially with Tua back and targeting Gesicki more than when he left initially when Brissett took over.
Remember when everyone was scared about Hunter Long? Remember when you could find Gesicki literally on your waiver wire for like a redraft league? Remember when Dallas Goedert was viewed as a much better option than Mike Gesicki? Remember when we were underestimating Mike Gesicki? What a year it's been for him. But I do want to note this one thing. All of his matchups right now have been very tight end friendly. We have the Jaguars, the Falcons, the Buccaneers, the Colts, the Las Vegas Raiders. None of these defenses have been particularly great this year. Or great for the tight end, great against the tight end position. So maybe tougher matchups, he might become less involved. I think based on how he's playing, owners are going to want a first for him. I'm not sure I'm willing to give up a first for Mike Gesicki. So for that, I'm going to say that's an overreaction. Don't get me wrong. If he can consistently put up production like this, he's going to be worth that first. But last year, the tight end 3 was Logan Thomas. And so we see this tight end position shift around a lot. All these people wanting a lot for these elite tight ends, but we don't know for a fact that Gesicki's in that category yet with the Wallers and the Kelseys and all these guys. We were saying that Kittle was sure in that category, but after how he played the first couple of weeks, do we know that? We don't. But that's going to be overreaction, underreaction. So that was a great segment. But to wrap up this podcast, as I said before, let's give an update on how our teams are doing. How's your teams doing in general, Evan?
So overall,
any trades that you recently got?
Yeah, overall, I'm very happy with this season. Let's see. So 1, 2, 3 of my teams are 5-2. I have one team that's 4-3 and one team that's 3-4. Those are all dynasty teams. So basically what I've been doing is I've been a gambler, a hustler this season with my trades. Moving basically as I've won, I've tried to move pieces of young prospects for reliable veterans and players that I can start. So a trade that I made today, for example, I've been stuck. I only drafted Allen Robinson in one league, thank God. I was thankful that he didn't fall to me in more leagues because he was a guy I was very high on before the season. I was in a redraft league. I was considering him. I had him ranked above Cooper Kupp. I had him. Well, I mean, nobody.
Well, I mean, everyone did. So
nobody.
It's surprising now.
Thought
Back
Cooper
then,
Kupp
you
was
can't
gonna
blame
be,
anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had AJ Brown available, so I took him, but Robinson went shortly after that, and so I got stuck with Robinson in a league. I also drafted Darnell Mooney because Mooney was a guy. He was one of my top targets as a second-year breakout, and the problem is Justin Fields has been such a horrible passer that he can't support either of them.
Either.
And they've been such a run-heavy team now. I mean, with Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, and so these are two guys I don't see as long as they're in Chicago. I don't know if either of them has the kind of future that I was expecting as a dynasty prospect. Mooney, of course, he has everything. I mean, both of them have all the tools you need to be a great fantasy prospect and asset. But with Justin Fields there and not improving week to week, I've been trying to sell them for a couple weeks now. I finally got a taker. I sold off Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney for Damian Harris and Khalif Raymond. So I didn't
Khalif Raymond sounds like a throw-in.
It was, yeah. I didn't want to
basically just for that one guy.
Well, no, because I mean Khalif Raymond, he's been the number one receiver target for Jared Goff, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in PPR, he's still, I think he had 17 points last week. So if I have a bye coming up and I need a flex like this week, I'm going to throw him in there. And he's not a threat to score touchdowns. I don't really care. He's going to get targets. Let's see. He had 8 targets this week. Last week he had 7 the week before. He had another week with 10 targets. So I mean, he's been a reliable
sneaky
flex.
assassin.
Exactly. So and I don't value him obviously that much. But Damian Harris, I didn't have another guy. I just traded for Nick Chubb as well. And I needed somebody else to go alongside him that was going to be more dominant and consistent than like a James Conner. He was a guy that I had in there. So I got Damian Harris, thankfully, and he's a guy that's been playing really well of late. He's clearly the guy in New England. He's young. So, I mean, I feel good about him. And I was happy that trade, went down.
So you said redraft, right?
No, that was Dynasty.
Dynasty, I like that in redraft. I don't like that in dynasty. No offense, but here's why. Because sooner or later, Allen Robinson is going to be cooking once that offense can get grooving. We know that Allen Robinson, or so we think, but we know we've seen it in the past what Allen Robinson can be, and he's still fairly young. And then we've also seen that Darnell Mooney is like overtaking him. So anything to me is impressive because it shows you that Darnell Mooney is at that level. So Darnell Mooney is a guy that's really going to start to explode. And Khalif Raymond, he might be good this year, but I don't see him long term. And with Damon Harris and that New England offense, which I absolutely hate that running game. Oh my gosh, I stay away from all those guys. I do like Damon Harris, but it's like he's even this year he's been like inconsistent. He hasn't been getting a ton of rushes. They still have Brandon Bolden, Ramondre Stevenson, James White when he gets healthy. So I'm not necessarily buying it. If you're trying to win now, championship right now, which you are, I can definitely see that. But I think if we're looking 3-4 years down the line, we're gonna say, oh my, Darnell Mooney might be worth more than Damon Harris. I wouldn't say that's super bold, but gotta respect the move.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, all of my leagues I am in win now mode. I'm not rebuilding in any. I'm trying to win the championship in every single league. So my trades, I'm constantly trying to upgrade. There's a couple guys I do have. I have I'm on another roster. I have Kadarius Toney and Rondell Moore. Those are two guys I'm not really selling because they're guys I'm keeping on my taxi.
I like that.
On my bench. They're guys I think have boom potential in the next couple of years. I think that I like both of them better than Darnell Mooney, and I think they're going to be the next batch of great talented receivers. Like
fair.
Yeah, like I think they're going to be the go-to guys for their teams and wide receiver one possibilities in the future.
I don't know if I see that for Rondell Moore. I know early in the season we were really high on Rondell Moore, but they still have DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk.
Well, yeah.
And can we say Rondell Moore is better than Christian Kirk right now? We can't, but Kadarius Toney on the other hand, that's a different story.
I'm taking a long approach. Like when Hopkins is gone,
that's interesting. A win now team, but you do have to have those pieces that you're like, I can sustain this success. So I like that. I'm surprised that you're going all in on all your teams. I normally
more fun that way for me.
Yeah, it is more fun. I've been fortunate enough in some leagues to acquire some young assets that have turned out, or like middle age. I end up like finding myself with a bunch of middle aged guys that are just lighting it up, like Cortland Sutton some weeks, Brandon Cooks, these Cooper Kupps and the Stephon Diggs. Those are the guys that I really find value in. So yeah, this season so far, an update. So I think I am 24-11 through 4 dynasty and 1 redraft. So pretty happy. Don't always do this good. I know one of those leagues that I'm 5-2 in this year. This year, I actually didn't win a single game last season because I was so set on rebuilding.
Oh,
so a little bit of a turnaround. But right now, most of my teams are in win now, except for the listener league where I'm 3-4. I'm right around that 500 range. Can I win with my current team? I don't know, but we'll see. So I might have to make some moves there to get either out of the middle and try to compete or get towards the bottom and try to rebuild. I have some nice young assets on that as well.
I have a quick question. So what players do you have the most amount of shares across your leagues, like your target guys?
That's great. Yeah, so James Robinson, he's a big guy that I have a lot of shares in.
Yeah.
I know in Dynasty last year, I was like, I even traded a second for him, I think, like right before the season started, which helped. So I have like 2 or 3 Dynasty shares of James Robinson, and I've held on to him because if I'm not getting the trade value one, I don't care. I'll sit on a guy. Like I'll sit on a Ronald Jones type guy performer. I'll sit on the Trace Sermon. I'm not afraid to get burned rather than try to sell them for whatever little value I can get. No, I'm not afraid to get burned. So that's been a big one that I've had some shares of. Let me see if I can think of another one. I have a Derrick Henry share. He's been doing really good for me as well. And then Khalil Herbert. I don't know if I have like a lot of consistent guys. Like I'm trying to think of consistent guys I have across all my leagues, and there aren't a lot of names necessarily coming to my mind. I do have Najee Harris in 2 leagues, so that he's
Okay.
really been having a good season.
Wow. I'm impressed you're able
Lil
to get
Visco
get
Chanel, I
him.
have him in a few.
Okay. Yeah. So the guys, some of my players are handcuffs, like so
Oh,
my
Justin Jefferson, I forgot. Hold on.
okay.
Justin Jefferson is the player that I have in like 3 leagues. I think he's one of
Okay.
my 2 or 3 leagues. He's one of my more hyped players.
Yeah, he's a guy I love too. He's one of my keepers. I kept him and Darren Waller in my keeper league. I have a lot of shares across and so when I say a lot, 60% of my leagues, 60 and 40% are about what I
Okay.
have of these players. So 3 leagues, 2 leagues. So there's none of them where I have this one guy on every single team, but guys that I've really targeted heavily this season to win, uh, Derrick Henry, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. I've picked up a few guys, Ricky Seals Jones, Zach Ertz.
Nice.
I mean, one guy I
Fill in
really,
guys for tight end.
yeah, especially in a tight end premium. Sometimes it's valuable to take a chance. The young guys I really like, obviously, Kadarius Toney and Rondell Moore. Darnell Mooney was a guy I still have him in a lot of leagues. So I mean, I like Darnell Mooney. He's such a talented pass catcher. I'm really concerned. I was expecting a lot more from Justin Fields, and my hope is that as a Lions fan, I hope, obviously Fields doesn't work out, but as a fantasy manager, I hope that Fields is able to recover from this, and hopefully Matt Nagy gets the boot after the season and somebody comes in that can, really get the most out of Justin Fields, because that would be very good for Mooney. And actually, if A-Rob gets traded or, is not re-signed, then Mooney's stock is going to go, soaring.
It's a great point. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap up the podcast. Thanks for all of you guys who have tuned in to this one. We might do another episode as well, going over our FanDuel lineups and our critical 5th week of action, week 8. See who comes out on top for that one, potentially tomorrow. But you can find this podcast on YouTube and on pretty much any podcast platform. So once again, thanks everyone who tuned in. This is Justin Evan signing off. Have a great one, everyone.